His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa held at the Kremlin Palace in Moscow an official discussion session with the Russian President Vladimir Putin on the occasion of His Majesty the King's visit to Russia.
Ваше Величество, дорогие друзья, позвольте вас сердечно поприветствовать в России. Ваше Величество, мы не виделись с вами с 2016 года, хотя были в контакте все это время. И вот совсем недавно, в марте, в очередной раз разговаривали по телефону. В следующем году мы отмечаем 35 лет установления дипломатических отношений между нашими странами. Но за эти годы многое сделано в строительстве отношений между нашими государствами. У нас хорошие контакты очень по линии МИДов, и по очень многим вопросам международной повестки наши позиции близки. Совсем недавно, неделю назад, было заседание Лиги арабских государств, где Бахрейн сейчас председательствует, и, конечно, мне было очень интересно узнать ваше мнение и о ситуации на Ближнем Востоке, и о том, как шло обсуждение этих проблем. Что касается уровня торговых связей, то у нас он носит, к сожалению, пока символический характер, но тенденции хорошие. Вот что касается инвестиционного взаимодействия, то здесь ситуация более благоприятная. Осуществляется примерно 30 крупных проектов, общий объем пакета где-то $500 миллионов. У нас хорошие взаимоотношения в области культуры. В этом году мы намерены провести Дни Бахрейна в России, а в следующем году, насколько мне известно, коллеги договорились о том, что будут проведены русские сезоны в вашей стране. Развиваются и другие гуманитарные контакты, прежде всего в сфере образования, науки. И здесь тоже есть хорошие перспективы. В общем, мы очень рады вас видеть. Добро пожаловать в Россию, Ваше Величество.
أهلا وسهلا فخامة الرئيس. وأنا أعتبر هذا اليوم من أسعد الأيام اللي تجمعنا بفخامتكم. ونشكرك على الدعوة الكريمة وعلى حسن الاستقبال. وفي الواقع صار لنا مدة ما زرنا موسكو الجميلة، واشتقنا كثير لزيارتكم ولزيارة الأصدقاء، والقصد هو تجديد التعاون وتطوير التعاون في مختلف المجالات الثنائية. كذلك من أهم أهداف الزيارة هو إطلاع فخامتكم على نتائج القمة العربية. أصدقائكم العرب يكنون لكم كل محبة وكل تقدير لدور روسيا في تعاطفها مع القضايا العربية العادلة، ولله الحمد. وكان اتفاق تام بأن نتوصل إلى مؤتمر للسلام دولي، وروسيا هي أول دولة أتوجه لها بطلب دعم هذا المؤتمر، لأن بلا دعم روسيا لا قيمة لهذا المؤتمر، وكذلك الدول العالمية المؤثرة. فنأمل بإذن الله أن نتوفق بتحقيق هذا المؤتمر في البحرين. احنا طلبنا انه يكون في البحرين. كذلك نهني فخامتكم بفوزكم المستحق، وهذا دليل على ثقة الشعب بقيادتكم الحكيمة، وهذا يجعل الجميع في منطقتنا وفي عالمنا العربي فرحين بهذا الفوز واستقرار روسيا العزيزة، ونرى اليوم نمواً اقتصادياً واجتماعياً وأمنياً على كل الظروف الصعبة اللي تمر فيها روسيا ومنطقتنا كذلك. غزة أحد النقاط المؤلمة بالنسبة لنا، ونريد توقف هذه الحرب اليوم قبل بكرة. في الواقع يعني حفاظا على الأبرياء تأثروا كثير، نزحوا بالمئات الألوف من بيوتهم من مناطقهم، وهم يدورون في بلدهم اللي ربما طولها 40 كيلو متر وعرضها 12 كيلو متر، يعني عوائل، أطفال، نساء، والقصف مستمر. احنا ركزنا على هالأبرياء كيف نساعدهم إنسانيا. أما الخلاف معروف تاريخي قديم، ولا كان في تشاور. العمليات الحربية لم يكن فيها تشاور، لكن الإخوة العرب تفهموا الموقف في القمة العربية، ولأول مرة كان فيه إجماع عند الجميع الحقيقة، وهذا شيء يفرحني أنا شخصيا، بأنها المسؤولية للعام القادم أتابع مع إخواننا العرب أمور قضاياهم، ولن نستغني عن دعمكم. وكذلك نفكر في حسن الجوار مع جيراننا بصورة عامة، وجيراننا لا شك نحاول أن تكون بيننا وبينهم علاقات طبيعية، دبلوماسية، تجارية، ثقافية. ما في شك مرة أخرى دعم فخامتكم لهذا الأمر يكون شيء الحقيقة مرحب به من جانب أهل البحرين عموما وأنا شخصيا.
The two sides discussed the course of bilateral cooperation and the advanced level they reached, as well as the means to develop cooperation to serve the two countries' goals and interests. They also discussed Arab and regional developments, as well as the escalation and tension in the region as a result of the devastating war in the Gaza Strip. The regional and international efforts for a ceasefire and releasing hostages and detainees and providing humanitarian aid for civilians to alleviate the suffering of the people in the Strip. They affirmed the need for de-escalation and promoting diplomatic action to settle the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and reach a just, comprehensive and sustainable peace for the Palestinian cause in accordance with international legitimacy resolutions and the Arab Peace Initiative to establish the independent Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital and support the efforts to declare Palestine as a state and accept it as a permanent member in the UN. They also affirmed the importance of the UN Security Council's assuming its responsibility towards ending world conflicts and disputes, resolving them according to international law and the UN Charter to maintain global security and peace and harness international efforts to consolidate global stability and support sustainable development to achieve the progress and prosperity for the people of the world. In honor of His Majesty the King, the Russian President held a lunch banquet on the occasion of His Majesty's visit to Russia at the Kremlin Palace that was attended by the official delegation accompanying His Majesty the King and a number of senior officials from the Russian government. His Majesty exchanged friendly talks with the Russian President during the banquet, which reflected the deep-rooted historical relations between the two countries and the keenness on strengthening them. Following the banquet, His Majesty exchanged with the Russian President commemorative gifts on the occasion. His Majesty the King and the Russian President witnessed the signing of memorandums of understanding and agreements between the two countries during His Majesty's visit to Russia. An MOU between the two countries' ministries of health in the health field. The MOU aims to strengthen and develop cooperation between the two countries in the health field on the basis of mutual interest. It was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Abdelatif Ziyani, and the Russian Minister of Health, Mikhail Murashko. An MOU between the Bahrain's National Health Regulatory Authority and the Russian Ministry of Industry and Trade on enhancing cooperation in pharmaceutical production. The MOU aims to enhance Russian-Bahraini cooperation in pharmaceutical and medical industries on a competitive basis and mutual benefits. It was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Russian Minister of Industry and Trade, Anton Ali Khanov. An MOU between Bahrain's Ministry of Transportation and Telecommunications and Russia's Ministry of Transportation and Transport and Transit. The MOU aims to improve the efficiency of transport links to organize and increase the volume of passenger and good transport in bilateral traffic and transit on the North-South International Transport Corridor. It was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Russian Minister of Transport, Roman Starovit. An MOU between the Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities and the Russian Ministry of Culture on the Russian Seasons project in Bahrain 2025. The MOU aims to implement the Russian Seasons program to present Russian culture heritage in Bahrain. It was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Russian Minister of Culture. A cooperation program between the Bahrain Authority for Culture and Antiquities and the Russian Ministry of Culture for the years 2024-2027. The program aims to implement the MOU signed between the two countries on December 2, 2008 to strengthen brotherly relations and cooperation in the field of culture. It was signed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Russian Minister of Culture. An MOU between the Supreme Council for the Environment, the Roscongress Foundation and the Kamchatka Falcon Center. The MOU aims to expand cooperation in protecting rare bird species at the international level. It was signed by the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Political Affairs, Sheikh Dr. Abdullah bin Ahmed Al Khalifa, and the Vice President of the Roscongress Foundation, Gregory Veliking, and the Director of the Kamchatka Falcon Center Project, Vladimir Tomazov. An MOU between the Mohammed bin Mubarak Al Khalifa Academy for Diplomatic Studies at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Russian Diplomatic Academy at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The MOU aims to cooperate on a regular basis in the field of training and improving the professional skills of diplomats within the framework of strengthening relations between the diplomatic corps in the two countries. It was signed by the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Political Affairs and the head of the Diplomatic Academy of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Alexander Yakovetko. The signing ceremony was attended by the delegation accompanying His Majesty the King and senior officials of the Russian government. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa visited the headquarters of the Federal Assembly of Russia within the framework of His Majesty's official visit to Russia, where he was received by the President of the Federal Assembly, Valentina Matvenko, who welcomed His Majesty and his visit to Russia. His Majesty wrote a message in the register of VIP visitors in which he expressed gratitude for the invitation from the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, to also visit Russia and for the warm welcome and hospitality received, which affirms the friendly relations between the two countries and the historical and constructive bilateral cooperation at all levels that serves mutual interests and meets the aspirations of the two people for security, development and prosperity. His Majesty praised the efforts and active role of the Federal Assembly to support the comprehensive development process in Russia and strengthen its high position internationally, wishing Russia and its people peace, stability and progress. During the visit, His Majesty met with the President of the Assembly and reviewed the close relations of friendship and cooperation between the two countries. His Majesty praised the advanced level reached in all fields, especially at the parliamentary and democratic levels, and the exchange of visits and experiences with regard to parliamentary and legislative work. His Majesty expressed pleasure with the results achieved by his successful visit to Russia and his discussions with President Putin, which will have a positive impact on strengthening the strong historical partnership with Russia. His Majesty praised the development of the parliamentary process in Bahrain and the important achievements and gains made by the legislative authority for the advancement of the kingdom and the progress of its people. During the meeting, views were exchanged on a number of regional and international issues and developments of common interest. For her part, the President of the Assembly expressed thanks and appreciation to His Majesty for his visit, praising his role in consolidating bilateral relations and improving cooperation with Russia in all fields. She praised the role of the Supreme Council for Women and its achievements and programs aimed at the advancement of Bahraini women. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa received at his residence in the Russian capital Moscow the President of Tatarstan, Rustam Minikhunov. As part of His Majesty's official visit to Russia, His Majesty welcomed the President and reviewed with him the deep-rooted friendship relations and the opportunities to bolster cooperation, hailing the bilateral relations and the progress achieved in various fields. The Tatar President congratulated His Majesty the King on the success of the Arab Summit hosted by Bahrain this month, expressing appreciation for His Majesty's keenness on developing relations with his country. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa received at his residence in the Russian capital Moscow the President of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov. The two greet His Majesty on the occasion of his official visit to Russia. His Majesty welcomed the Chechen President and hailed the development and growth of the strong bilateral relations, affirming Bahrain's keenness on bolstering cooperation with Chechnya in various vital fields to serve common interests. The President expressed pride in His Majesty's efforts to develop friendship relations and cooperation between the two countries. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa received at his residence in the Russian capital Moscow Sheikh al-Islam, the Supreme Mufti and Chairman of the Central Spiritual Administration of Muslims of Russia, His Eminence Talat Safa Tajuddin, to greet His Majesty on the occasion of his official visit to Russia. His Majesty the King welcomed His Eminence, the Supreme Mufti, and affirmed the deep-rooted friendship relations between the two countries and the continuous progress of cooperation at various levels, particularly the field of civilizational communication and cultural exchange. His Majesty noted the efforts of His Eminence in promoting the values of coexistence, dialogue, moderation, and authentic Islamic concepts to reflect the true image of Islam, which calls for tolerance and rejects terrorism and extremism in all its forms. His Majesty expressed pride in the freedom that Bahrain provides for practicing religious rights, affirming the global model it provides across history in brotherhood, coexistence, and tolerance between all religions and sects in light of its constant endeavors to establish the culture of rapprochement between cultures and civilizations. His Eminence the Supreme Mufti hailed His Majesty's role in serving the causes of Islam and Muslims and his humanitarian initiatives in bolstering the principles of tolerance and moderation, rejecting fanaticism and spreading peace and coexistence. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa received at his residence in the Russian capital Moscow the Chairman of the Mufti Shura Council of Russia, Head of the Religious Administration for Muslims of the Russian Federation, His Eminence the Grand Mufti Sheikh Rawi Ain ad-Din, and his accompanying delegation to greet His Majesty upon his official visit to Russia. His Majesty welcomed the Grand Mufti and praised the historical relations and the strong bonds of friendship between Bahrain and Russia in light of the common concern and constant endeavors to strengthen them in all fields. His Majesty Mashi commended the efforts of the Grand Mufti in introducing the moderation and tolerance of Islam, spreading the principles and concepts of peace and brotherhood, and upholding the values of coexistence, dialogue, and moderation. His Majesty affirmed that Bahrain will always remain a beacon of tolerance, moderation, and coexistence throughout its history, and will continue to work for dialogue between civilizations and confront intolerance and extremism as an embodiment of the noble human values and the openness and moderation of its people. His Majesty also stressed that the kingdom is continuing its noble humanitarian efforts and initiatives to establish a culture of rapprochement and coexistence between religions for the progress of humanity. The Grand Mufti lauded the kingdom's efforts led by His Majesty the King and its important role in spreading the teachings of Islam and its noble values that encourage tolerance and moderation, and its pioneering initiative in strengthening communication, brotherhood, and cooperation between cultures and religions. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa received at his residence in the Russian capital Moscow the representative of the Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Antioch and all the East to the Patriarch of Moscow and all Russia. His Eminence Archbishop Nifon Seikali on the sidelines of His Majesty's visit to Russia. His Majesty welcomed the Archbishop and reviewed with him a number of issues that contribute to spreading the culture of dialogue and religious tolerance, adhering to the approach of moderation and rejecting extremism. His Majesty praised the Archbishop's efforts in the humanitarian field and promoting the values of goodness and peace. His Majesty expressed Bahrain's pride in its history of brotherhood, tolerance, and coexistence as it embraces various religions and cultures as one interconnected family, thanks to the awareness, faith, and adherence of its people to noble humanitarian principles based on respect for all. The Archbishop expressed thanks and appreciation to His Majesty for the support given to religions in Bahrain, praising His Majesty's pioneering initiatives and efforts in spreading the values of goodness and peace. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, the president of the current session of the Arab Summit, and the accompanying delegation departed the Russian capital Moscow following a visit to Russia. Response to the invitation of the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, during which His Majesty held discussions with the President on the close historical friendship between the two countries and the latest regional and international issues of common interest. An official farewell ceremony was held for His Majesty where the Royal Bahraini and the Russian Republican anthems were played, after which His Majesty shook hands with those who bid farewell. His Majesty was then bid farewell at Vukova International Airport by the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister and the Special Representative of the President for the Middle East, Mikhail Bogdanov, the Head of State Protocol, Igor Bogachev, the Russian Ambassador to Bahrain, Alexei Skios-Syriv, and Bahrain's Ambassador to Russia, Ahmed Abdurrahman Al-Saati. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, the president of the current session of the Arab Summit, and his accompanying delegation yesterday arrived in the Russian capital Moscow for an official visit following the invitation of the Russian President Vladimir Putin, where he will hold talks with the president on the deep-rooted historical friendship relations between the two countries and the current regional and international developments. As the royal plane carrying His Majesty the King entered the Russian airspace, was accompanied by Russian Air Force warplanes welcoming His Majesty. Upon arrival at the Vnukovo International Airport, His Majesty was received by the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister and the Special Representative of the President for the Middle East, Mikhail Bogdanov, the Head of State Protocol, Igor Bogachev, the Russian Ambassador to Bahrain, Alexei Skios-Syriv, and Bahrain's Ambassador to Russia, Ahmed Abdurrahman Al-Saati. Official reception of protocols were held for His Majesty, where the musical band played the Bahraini and Russian anthems.
Почетный караул от войск Московского территориального гарнизона. В честь вашего прибытия в столицу Российской Федерации, город-герой Москву, построит начальник почетного караула капитан Горшунов.
Upon arrival, His Majesty the King made a statement where he expressed thanks and gratitude to the Russian President for the invitation, hailing the close friendship relations between the two countries and the development and growth in various fields to achieve common goals and interests. His Majesty expressed pride in Russia's high status at the international level, led by its President, and its constructive role in maintaining international security and peace and supporting development and prosperity efforts in the world. His Majesty expressed appreciation for Russia's development and progress at the comprehensive economic and development levels, affirming the keenness on further strengthening Bahraini-Russian relations to serve common interests. On the occasion of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa's visit to Russia, the Russian government put a display of the flags of Bahrain and Russia on the Ostankino Tower and on buildings along Novi Arbat Avenue in Moscow. The prosperous era of His Majesty the King witnessed a remarkable development in the Bahraini-Russian relations in accordance with common visions and principles in which the two countries agreed on many files and issues. More in this report.
From Manama to Moscow, paths of constructive and positive communication were strengthened during the prosperous era of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, and the Bahraini-Russian relations witnessed continuous developments thanks to the keenness of His Majesty the King and the Russian President Vladimir Putin, according to common visions and principles between the two countries. The first visit of His Majesty the King to Russia was in 2008, then in 2014, the year that witnessed the two countries celebrating the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the bilateral relations, in addition to the visit of His Majesty the King in 2015 and 2016. The remarkable development in joint Bahraini-Russian relations is seen as the result of a number of visits made by His Majesty the King to Russia over the past few years, and these visits laid many of the basic foundations for joint cooperation. The directions and vision of His Majesty the King in strengthening alliances with friendly countries and diversifying relations with various active forces in the international community were reflected in the tireless steps of the government of the Kingdom of Bahrain, headed by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, as the two countries witnessed many mutual visits that included senior officials, as well as the visit of His Royal Highness to Russia in 2014. As a culmination of these relations, and an emphasis on the shared keenness of the leadership of the two countries to develop them, many memorandums of understanding and cooperation were signed in various fields, confirming that the two countries are moving on one path to achieve the best interests for the two countries and their peoples.
Economic relations between Bahrain and Russia are witnessing remarkable development, which is the result of the purposeful plans and programs that were developed during previous years that contributed to consolidating relations and enhancing common interests. More in this report.
For more than 30 years, relations between Bahrain and Russia have witnessed remarkable development based on common ambitions and plans to advance economic and trade relations. This cooperation was based on strong economic components that depend on natural resources, a stable political environment, and a skilled workforce, which strengthened the process of bilateral cooperation. The exchange visits and coordination between the Bahraini-Russian Intergovernmental Committee for Trade, Economic, Scientific and Technological Cooperation indicate the two countries' continued desire and keenness to increase trade and economic exchange and cooperation, especially since Russia considers Bahrain a strategic partner and an important ally in the Gulf and the Middle East. This remarkable development in trade and economic relations has become clear through the increase in cooperation, especially in the aluminum industry, and in studying other areas of cooperation related to industry, aviation, space, water desalination, energy, science, education, pharmaceutical, and electronic and other related investment opportunities that the kingdom can provide and benefit from, given its attractive environment for investment, and the Russian endeavor to increase its investment flows abroad, especially to Gulf countries.
His Royal Highness the Deputy King Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa issued Edict 29 of the year 2024, amending some provisions of Edict 3 of the year 2015 regarding the formation of the Supreme Council for the Development of Education and Training, and Edict 78 of the year 2023 on constructing the Supreme Council for the Development of Education and Training, Article 1. The text of Article 3 of Decree 3 of the year 2015, establishing the Supreme Council for the Development of Education and Training, shall be replaced with the following text. The Council shall meet at least once every 3 months, and its proceedings shall be deemed legally binding when attended by a majority of its members, provided that the chairperson of his authorized deputy is present. Decisions in this shall be passed by a majority of the votes cast by those in attendance, and in the event of equal votes, the side supported by the chairperson presiding over the meeting shall prevail. Article 2, a new clause numbered 1 shall be added to Article 1 of Edict 78 of the year 2023, restructuring the Supreme Council for the Development of Education and Training, and the rest of the clauses of the article shall be renumbered accordingly as follows. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Mubarak Al Khalifa as Deputy Chairman. Commissioned by His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, the Minister of Foreign Affairs Dr. Abdul Latif Al Zayani conveyed the condolences and sympathy of His Majesty the King and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the government and the people of Bahrain, to Iran's Vice President for Executive Affairs Mohsen Mansouri and the Interim Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Baqiri on the demise of the President of Iran Dr. Ibrahim Raisi and Minister of Foreign Affairs Dr. Hussein Amir Abdullahian and those accompanying them following the unfortunate accident of the helicopter crash northwest of Iran. The minister expressed Bahrain's sympathy in this painful affliction, praying to Allah the Almighty to rest their souls in eternal peace and grant their families and the Iranian people solace and fortitude. The minister was accompanied by Bahrain's ambassador to Oman, Dr. Jamal Kabi, and the Chief of Legal Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Muhammad Al Haidan. The Minister of Tourism Fatma Sayrafi met the Saudi Minister of Tourism Ahmed Al Khatib on the sidelines of UN World Tourism Organization's 50th meeting of the Regional Committee for the Middle East in Oman. The minister stressed the continuation of launching joint tourism packages between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, which enhances the effectiveness of approaching sustainable tourism between both kingdoms. She pointed out that both kingdoms have come a long way in unifying efforts in marketing and promoting tourism activities. Al-Sayrafi emphasized that both kingdoms have successfully organized joint initiatives that contribute to attracting more tourists and revitalizing specialized tourism sectors. They also focus on further launching joint tourist destinations through cooperation with travel agencies and tour operations to boost the tourism sector. The Minister of Tourism Fatma Sayrafi met the Omani Minister of Heritage and Tourism Salim Al Mahrougi in Oman. She stressed the importance of enhancing efforts in the tourism sector between both countries within the deep ties that unites them. Sayrafi shed light on the outcomes and the touristic capabilities that both countries have that attract tourists from all over the world. She noted the importance of enhancing cooperation with Oman to promote the hospitality sector, touristic facilities, and tourism management companies as they contribute to the tourism sector between both countries. The Minister of Tourism Fatma Sayrafi met with Secretary General of the United Nations Tourism Organization Zurab Pololishvili. She stressed the tourism sector in Bahrain has seen many decisive steps that enhance the sustainable success of the sector that attracts tourists from all over the world, which makes Bahrain a pioneering leading destination globally. During the meeting, ways of enhancing joint tourism efforts between both sides were discussed. The Minister of Information, Dr. Ramzan bin Abdullah Naimi, participated in the 27th meeting of GCC Information Ministers held in Doha. Dr. Naimi affirmed that the developments and challenges in the region require intensifying media cooperation between GCC countries, increasing coordination within the Strategic Plan for Media Cooperation 2023-2030 to strengthen the role of Gulf media in defending the GCC's interests. He said that the Gulf media message must be more focused on raising the awareness of Gulf societies about the necessity of solidarity. The minister noted the importance of the meeting in discussing and completing the projects and decisions reached in previous meetings, agreeing on recommendations and decisions that advance Gulf media and keeping pace with developments. He affirmed Bahrain's keenness under the directive of His Majesty the King and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister to strengthen media cooperation between Bahrain and GCC countries to serve common interests and develop the Gulf media system. Dr. Naimi expressed Bahrain's welcome of hosting the 54th session of the Council of Arab Information Ministers from May 27th till the 29th. He affirmed that the kingdom finished all preparations to host the meeting, especially since it comes directly after its successful hosting of the 33rd Arab Summit chaired by His Majesty, adding that it was a historic event with the decisions and recommendations issued. He said that in conjunction with Manama Capital of Arab Media 2024, Bahrain is witnessing media activity and momentum and is working to achieve approachment between Arab media professionals and exchange experiences and meetings. The Minister of Industry and Commerce, Abdullah Fakhr, participated in the Industry and Investment Forum between the GCC and China, organized by China's National Development and Reform Commission, in the presence of GCC Ministers of Commerce and Investment and a number of Chinese senior officials. The minister stressed the relations between Bahrain and China are witnessing continuous development in various sectors, noting the mutual commitment to expand cooperation, especially in the commercial and industrial sector. The Minister of Industry and Commerce, Abdullah Fakhr, participated in the 7th annual U.S. alumni reception organized by the American Chamber of Commerce in Bahrain in collaboration with the U.S. Embassy in Bahrain and was attended by the U.S. Ambassador to Bahrain, Stephen Bondi, and the President of the American Chamber of Commerce in Bahrain and several officials. The minister affirmed that the historical relations between Bahrain and the U.S. are witnessing or progressing towards more development, prosperity, and growth. He emphasized that cooperation among alumni in the labor market significantly impacts national development. He praised the U.S. University alumni for integrating technology, research, and innovation into citizens' daily lives.
Today it's a very important event because it covers matters relevant to alumni and students who study in the United States in general. This has become a very important annual event for many young people and graduates, and therefore we have many graduates who are today in different positions, be it in government like ministers, be it in the private sector, and be it educators. So this is the whole idea of bringing people together.
The purpose of today's event is basically to connect with other alumni and see where they are in life, as Fulbright scholars or as graduates of other U.S. Department of State programs. And it's always lovely to see where people, went and what they're doing and, play on the commonalities between all of us as U.S. Department of State graduates.
I'm really excited to be here tonight. We are gathering alumni of American educational and exchange programs here, and the theme of the evening is lifelong learning. The idea behind the event is that we are bringing together some of the top performers in Bahrain, those who have studied in the United States, those who have gone on exchange programs, and these are people who are contributing in enormous ways to Bahrain's own prosperity, growth, peace, security, stability. We in the United States are very proud of the connection that we have to these up-and-coming people who are making a real difference for Bahrain in the future.
The Minister of Youth Affairs, Rawan Tawfiqi, met with a youth delegation of the first batch of graduates from the Young Parliamentarians program organized by the Watani Al Imarat Foundation in cooperation with the Federal Youth Authority in the UAE. The minister affirmed that youth relations between Bahrain and the UAE are strengthened as a result of the initiatives and meetings between the youth of the two countries. The CEO of Watani Al Imarat Foundation, Drar Al Flasi, hailed the effective role of the Ministry of Youth Affairs and its keenness on developing joint youth work, supporting the youth in developing their skills and empowering them in various fields. The Bahrain Declaration, which was issued during the 33rd Arab Summit, stressed the necessity of unifying efforts in supporting joint Arab action and stressed its firm and supportive Arab position towards the Palestinian cause, as it is the central issue and the backbone of peace and stability in the region.